The android detective turns his head and finds a crowd of faces, and he starts clawing through as many as he can, his mechanical hands pushing aside coats and human shoulders, and there's someone further up ahead that he's got to find, someone that he's been meaning to see, someone that has answers. Somehow this is very important to him. He recognizes the hat that they're wearing, and as he reaches his mechanical hand forward and grabs onto the coat of the person he's been chasing, and he turns them around, and he turns and sees their face, and it's a version of him, Mark 87, except new, fresh, with actual skin plating and semi-organic hands and a thrumming hard drive inside of the mind. And the skin version of Mark 87 reaches forward and grabs him and then pushes him over the edge of a cliff. And Mark 87 grabs onto each extra edge, and the skin-plated version of him, then now it's a nightmare, grabs onto his fingers, lifts them easily off of the edge of the cliff, and says, "You're outdated." Mark 87 wakes up from recharging. Whoa. Previously. Android eyes turn clear blue after turning on, glowing in a dark, closed speakeasy on a space station far away. A woman's voice. "This place is getting junked, and you almost went with it." A mechanical hand picks up a coded message. "I'm Nix Croman, and I need your help." And we see Mark 87, the android, sneaking through a crowded warehouse of Sylvan steel. "My boyfriend, he's missing. Steve Farnell. He's addicted to upgrades and cybernetic prosthetics." We see Mark 87 reach for hidden seeds on the underside of a pot. A Sylvan steel worker. "Yeah, he worked here, and he left this. Hey, you looking for an upgrade?" The detective's mechanical hands rest on a go bag. "Steeg's been looking for his brother," the android says. And we see the android reading in a hacked police car, and his mechanical finger traces down the screen to a name, Leaf Farnell, listed as dangerous. We hear the jailed speakeasy owner, "You're real?" And then we see the speakeasy owner again, looking closer. "Of course, the cops and Sylvan Steel are working together. They talked about it in my own bar." We see Mark 87 holding the Steve Farnell's photograph. "Yeah, I remember this guy. And he had his code to this shipping container in a lock somewhere." We see two muggers come out of a crowd. "Hey, stop there." And the android traps the two muggers in a trash container and picks up a flyer. "Dusk flower seeds," the android's voice reads aloud. "Dusk flower seeds are used for some kind of cybernetic or prosthetic med?" The woman steadies the android as he begins walking down, and we see them approaching the apartment. "Hey, are you okay?" "I'm just drained." "You're so outdated," she says as she's fumbling through power cords now inside of her apartment. I think I've got a plug that works." And the android's eye lights go dark. Welcome to another episode of Outdated, my playthrough of Caught in the Rain, a solo detective role-playing game. Yeah, it's a solo mystery role-playing game. Just in case you're catching up, what you just saw with me in my hat was the fictional side of this playthrough. It's an actual play, and I'm going to be playing through Caught in the Rain and explaining the instructions as we go. So when you see my hat off, that means I am talking about the rules and explaining what's going on behind the scenes. And when you see my hat on, that's the fiction. That's the story that gets created out of the rules and my imagination. And in about 1 minute of all of those snippet scenes, that could have caught you up on about 3 hours of content from my previous 3 episodes. So speaking out of character, let's catch you up on the behind the scenes stuff. This is day 3 of my investigation process, and what I just played through in the first couple of seconds was called a rest scene. It's one of 4 scenes that are available in Caught in the Rain, and you play through at least 4 scenes per day. Now, in the last 2 or 3 episodes, I basically was only playing investigation scenes, collecting clues, following up on the mystery, and so on. But we need to try out a little bit of something different because your protagonist, the main character of the solo role-playing game, he's only got so many resources available to him. First of all, you've got a fatigue. You've got a signature keyword that you can use to re-roll dice or to remove threats from a scene. And you've also got a set of attributes that I've been fortunate enough not to strike. As soon as you mark the 5th box on the fatigue track, then you mark off your highest available attribute, and then clear the fatigue track, and then continue marking any excess. So if you take 15 fatigue for some reason because of a threat or whatever, that means that your detective is effectively nullified. They have no more abilities to, or no more way to continue forward with the investigation. Now that said, if you mark 15 fatigue, something else is going on, you're about to lose the case. Fortunately for me, I only allowed his fatigue track to get up to 5, no, only up to 4. So in resting, I rolled a 1d6 die, let me show you one of those, and then cleared 3 fatigue. So now I'm down to 1 fatigue left. So let me also talk about truth scenes too. The way that Caught in the Rain works as a solo mystery role-playing game, you're playing effectively with a deck of cards, and the face cards are what are considered truth cards, and you get to pick at those as you uncover clues. Now, at the very beginning of the mystery, I removed 3 face cards at random, and if I can guess what those face cards are, I can effectively begin the ending process of closing out the game. The only way that I get to know what those cards are is if I have a peek at what the rest of the face cards are. And that's sitting over there in a handy deck of cards, the face down. So on day 3 of this investigation, and I've effectively rested for the first quarter of the day, I've got to mark that on my thing. So here's my deck of truth cards, and I have assembled a big stack of clue cards that I can pull out and use. But here's the kicker. The remaining clue deck also represents how much time I have left to finish the mystery. So you didn't think this whole thing could just keep on going forever. No, mysteries conclude, and we solve mysteries, and that's how you know you're a good detective. The thing is, there are 3 cards missing out of this entire stack, and I have no idea which 3 cards they are. They are perfectly random. I can spend one scene making connections and reviewing one of my clue sets. What that means is that as I was playing through several days of investigation, I was collecting a set of number cards, so ace to 10. Now, a clue set is, for instance, all of the ace cards that I collected. So far I've got 3 aces. That means I can spend one truth scene to look at 3 cards and make a pretty good guess. Look at 3 cards and then look at 3 truth cards from the deck. And that, by process of elimination, will get me to the bottom of the mystery. So then I'll be able to see what the other face cards are that weren't picked out. Pretty straightforward and simple, right? I hope so. Now, here's something else, too. You also have joker cards that are hidden inside of your clue deck, the ones with the numbers. So I happened to be able to get a lot of investigation done without running into any of the jokers, which would basically wipe out one of my clue sets. Meaning it was effectively a false lead, or not real, or that I'd gotten something wrong, or whatever. Those red herrings in the game can really mess up an investigator's day. Truth scenes are crucial times when your investigator is connecting the dots. It's a scene where your investigator is collecting the clues, studying what's there, making a deduction, and even sometimes finding information that is fixed. Now, there's not any attribute tests that are run here. This is not a risk game. This is this is a chance for you to eliminate and get closer to the actual truth. You play a truth scene to mark progress toward a mystery. So I overdid a lot of investigation. A lot. I know a lot about this mystery now, but I have no sense of how much of it is true. I've just got a lot of material that is coming together. The random tables on the side, and they do come with a large number of random tables, they support the player as they move toward some kind of resolve to the fiction. So when it comes to solo RPGs, and this is the very first one I've ever played, it's pretty fun to watch the system offer some guide rails to something as complex as a mystery storytelling game. That set of guide rails also spurs the imagination and moves things forward in the work of an investigation. For this mystery, the ace clue set represents Sylvan Steele, the black market lead. The fact that they've been working with the cops and that they hung out in the Sylvan Street. That they hung out in the Speakeasy. So the Speakeasy where Mark 87 was found as a decoration and then got activated and turned on for the mystery. That bar apparently was a backdrop for some shady dealings between the cops and the upgrade manufacturer Sylvan Steel. So that one clue set is tied to all of that truth, or tied to all of those truths. So what elements do I need to combine here? Let's find out. Oh, before I put my hat back on, clue set number 3 represented all of the false charges on the Speakeasy bar owner. I'm not as interested in that as part of the solution, but I am more interested in the shipping logs that were left by Stieg Farnell, and that is clue number 5, or clue set 5. So I'll be playing around with that. Mark 87 wakes up from his dream. It's early in the morning with birds outside in the space station. The birds here sound unfamiliar to him. Maybe another breed has been brought in since the last time he was awake. The birds occasionally get changed out, and obviously after years and years, the bird population can either get overrun, or as part of the ecosystem inside of the space station, it's important to keep a control on what birds are there. So the fact that he doesn't recognize these birds just reminds him of a simple fact, that he has been out of commission for so very long. Usually you would notice these kinds of things and keep track. No, not anymore. Everything is fresh. At 50 years, he stands up and stretches inside of the apartment of Nix Croman. His client is a woman who is an engineer, and he can see the machinery that she told him not to look at. And he also stretches back towards where Stieg Farnell has his investigation board of his own, where he's trying to track down his brother, Leif Farnell. Stieg, Sylvan Steel, the cops. What did they all mean? What had Stieg gotten into? Mark 87 sits down and begins to take a set of notes, just with basic paper and pencil, as apparently there is more paper and pencil these days on a more corrupt version of this space station than was available in his day. So I've got Mark 87 awake, and apparently he's awake before Nix Croman is, and I'm suggesting that he had woken up a little earlier than usual. So, I mean, how long does it take for an android to recharge? Post in the comments. How long do you think he should take to recharge? Is that a long rest or is it a short rest? If I were just going with D&D rules, I would say long rest, 8 hours. But because of how much I get out of resting, I recover 1d6 of stress or 1d6 of fatigue, and I clear all of my keywords. So that's pretty handy, especially if you've got a high-level investigator. Okay, let's talk about the truth. I am so excited. So now I'm going to turn the ACE clue set to the side, and now it no longer works like a regular set of clues. If I find that 4th ACE somewhere, I just discard it. It's a waste. I'm really not sure I really care about the 3 at all, the 3's clue set that I've got, but I am probably more interested in getting answers out of the shipping container, and then I'm probably going to need another investigation scene. Yeet. So here we go. For 3 ACE cards, I get to draw 1, 2, 3. I know that these cards are not part of the solution. So, all right, interesting. What do they represent? According to the rules of the game, the actual Jack, King, Queen, it doesn't, whatever suit it is, it doesn't matter. The important part is that you are eliminating cards out of the truth deck so that you know what the truth is when it's time to deduce it. And because this is 3 clues, I'm turning 3 of these into 3 truths of some kind, I'm going to get to modify this clue set like 3 times with 3 different deductions. Inside of the rule set from Caught in the Rain, the question is, you're supposed to answer the following question: what connection does your investigator make to confirm the truth, this truth? Mark 87 looks out the window with his pad and pencil. The cops and Sylvan Steel, what would they be doing in Easy Street? In his mind, a 3D schematic of the space station map pulls in. It's a little outdated, of course, but for time's sake, it makes sense as he's browsing through the maps and clues. Like Sylvan Steel and Sylvan Steel operates out in the dock sector, and the police have stations here, there, and everywhere. But Easy Street, the speakeasy that was available, speakeasy, uh, Easy Street was not on one of the main routes to Sylvan Steel. It would be out of the way, of course. And by now, we've also established, like, of course, Sylvan Steel is working with the cops. Mark 87 sees in his memory when he's looking at inside of the cop's car, Leaf Farnell's name is registered there. Not only that, but there's transponder codes and details that are associated to it, associated to that listing. And as Mark 87 is passing through his memory, he rewinds some of the audio tape of the conversation with the speakeasy owner, Lorenzo Iverson. And he hears Lorenzo Iverson, of course the cops were working together with Sylvan Steel. Like, they were in the bar, right underneath your nose, such as it is. And then he pauses right there. The transponder codes would be associated to each and every single upgrade, because after a little while, some upgrades might be considered innocuous, not necessarily dangerous. But then again, those that were considered dangerous, of course they would need some kind of a tracking system on it. And the cops themselves didn't have the equipment for that. That's where some of the hardware processes go in. How many different tracking systems are in Mark 87's own body? We had to stop to wonder. So what was Easy Street for? I mean, at this point, it's obvious. It's some way for the cops to communicate back and forth with Sylvan Steel. Wait a minute. What if that is why Stieg Farnell was taken? We know that Stieg Farnell worked for Sylvan Steel, and that's what his go bag in their offices was about. But that means that he could try to impersonate a Sylvan Steel contact. Maybe something then went wrong. If Stieg tried to impersonate a Sylvan Steel representative to get transponder codes or to try to get the police to try and track down Leaf Farnell, or conversely tried to impersonate one of the police to try to get Sylvan Steel's transponder code tracking. However it went down, Stieg went to Easy Street to try to track down his brother by leveraging the connection between the cops and Sylvan Steel. When Sylvan Steel gets pulled in for tracking down potentially dangerous upgrades, the cops have to pass information back and forth to them. Well, now we know why this bar got pulled in and why the investigator himself was pulled in. Mark 87 looks at his dusty coat and takes off his hat for a moment and considers it. This costume was part of what made speakeasies like this stand out. And at the same time, it was a carnival, a festival, a place to kick back and enjoy the good old days. When the truth is, well, there are no good old days. Every day is its own bit of twisted steel and drifting in the stars. Mark 87 grabs his hat, puts it back on, and then grabs his pencil and paper. He's got some more walking to do. He hears Nix Croman getting ready for work the next day, and for a moment he pauses and knocks on the bedroom door. She cracks it open a little bit. Oh, you're awake. Oh, okay. Yeah, I've got some more checking up to do. How do you feel from last night? Mark 87 shoots her a comforting glance. at least as comforting as he can offer one, when he's got little LEDs for eyes and somewhat glowing features on his face. Smiles. I had better dreams before, but thank you for getting me home last night. Where are you going to go? I was going to go check out the docks. I think I might have a solution to the encrypted shipping codes. If you think you know where Steak is, tell me, okay? Just don't hide it. No, I'm nowhere near that. Just pulling the pieces together first. Stay safe. I'll contact you before if I find out anything solid. Mark 87 steps out the sliding door, takes hustled steps down the stairway from the apartment, and then quickly rejoins the crowd of people walking through the main street of the White Home station. As he looks up, White Home can spiral to the right as the landscape is a gigantic tube of a space station. And it turns slowly and steadily, not that he can see it turning, but that turn keeps everybody's feet on the ground and keeps the world moving. But then as he looks out into the distance, and you can look up and see it far there, there's a dark spiral through the area. And those are spots where the ships on the outside of the space station may dock and insert their own equipment, cargo, offloading passengers and people. And so the station is effectively one long city street with several side streets that dead end into buildings where more cargo arrives from farthest reaches of space. And that is where Mark 87 finds himself walking along, because that shipping code is going to lead him to to one spot on the space station, to one of those docking ports, and then possibly to the shipping yards around those docking ports. And at that point, to a specific shipping container maybe. Who knows what's in there? Alright, so I've set up my second truth scene, and it's my third scene for the day. Again, no attribute tests for this. This is just making clear deductions based on what I draw from the card deck. And I am going to use the 5s. So that's all of the encrypted shipping message that was tucked into the Speakeasy's office. And it's written in Steeg's own handwriting. There's extra data packed into the shipping log, and it also includes a code storage. So it stands to reason that by this point, the machine working in Mark 87's brain can crack the code and lead him straight to some truths. Let me draw some truth cards. So I've got 3 5s handy, and I'm going to turn that into a trio of truth cards. First one is a King of Diamonds, a Jack of Diamonds, and a King of Spades. Let me take a moment. How do those 3 things add up to truth here? Mark 87 checks his notes and looks at the shipping container log and finds himself registering within the numbers and notes a algorithm that had been processing through his own mind, and he can see it now. Okay, K District. In just a moment, Mark 87 jumps onto one of the buses and rides the public transit to K District. What are the ports? Which port area? And then he finds himself at Sub-District J. And at Sub-District J, how far is he from both Sylvan Steel and Nix Croman? And even Easy Street is far off. This distant part of the station has a similar look to the neighborhoods, but it's industrial with chain link fences, rounded out corners on the streets, and he can see edges of a teal blue light and faint orange glows behind those. This is a harbor yard for all kinds of transport, but these are larger shipping containers that include like refrigeration, cooling, and as he gets in closer, he's tracking down and sees one of the numbers on his system, and as he's walking through the district. Oh, okay, it's this shipping container. Wait a minute. There's still extra data sitting in the process, sitting in the code that Mark 87 has on his hands. But what are the rest of these numbers? And he walks around the shipping container, tapping, and then finds an access panel that has a alphanumeric lock. Within a few short moments, he taps in the right digits, and the door opens. And a bedroom awaits him. It's not living well, but this is still a getaway space for somebody. And resting on the bed with large muscles and several piston-looking projections coming out of his ribs is not Steve, but Leif Farnell, the missing man's brother, possibly protected by Steve. He's sleeping now, but in just a few moments, Steve, is that you? And then Leif Farnell takes a blink at the skinny android that has just opened his door. Wait, don't do anything rash, the android says to Leif, who had in that moment reached over and grabbed some large piece of furniture. Wait, I'm with Nix Croman. I'm with Stieg. We're looking for him. Stieg's gone missing. Stieg's missing now? Oh. And he sets down the large machine. If I get out of here, if I leave this spot, the cops are going to find me. Close the door, quick. The door shuts behind Mark 87. How long have you been hiding in here, Leif? Only a week or two. Stieg told me that I'd be safe, but he couldn't hang out very long. As soon as I showed up on the police transponder codes, they were on me just seconds after I arrived on the station. And I haven't done anything wrong. And in that moment, we can see Leif's mechanical systems and parts firing blue sparks. And he wakes up and jitters. He reaches over and takes a cup full of medicine. These suppressants can keep my system from flagging any of the police waveband, but there's also these contracts that are out there that are going to off me as soon as I step foot into the station. I'm not even that dangerous. At least I don't think I am. I'm more of a forklift than a bouncer. But, and how's it that Stieg's been getting out of all this? He's got more upgrades than I do. Oh, really? Well, that means somebody knows where he is. Look, I don't have long to explain, but I'm going to be finding Stieg. You stay here and stay safe, and I'll tell Nix Croman where you are. You seem to be surviving all right, but we don't want too many people opening and shutting your home for now. Is there any chance you're going to get shipped off? I don't see any other notifications. No, the shipping container is essentially off the books, but unless somebody pays an enormous amount of money, no starship's going to pick this up. I'll be fine. All right. Mark 87 steps back out into the clearing and steps back into the harbor yard, takes a longer walk back into the city streets. And now this mystery is just starting to come together. Who would Stieg go to confront after having hidden his brother away? His brother who has the upgrades and a police contract out either to kill or disable or maim this over-upgraded individual. And why is Sylvan Steele protecting them? Or better yet, why is Sylvan Steele hunting these people down? As Mark 87 rides the bus, he finds himself leaping through the clues that are left in his stockpile of memory. So we have the go back from Sylvan Steele, the employee locker. And we know that somebody may have confronted Stieg, but that could have been anything. That could have been a fight from any number of workplace elements. Mark 87 rides along with the bus and sees an older man with a totally cybernetic leg. So Sylvan Steel has contracts on potentially dangerous, cybernetically upgraded individuals. Those contracts turn into either disappearances or the cops have an easier time arresting them. The cops have the tracking equipment, and the cops are the ones that are altering all these cases. But then it's Sylvan Steel's job to take these people down. So of course, Leaf is hiding from the cops, and as soon as cops have information about where Leaf is hiding, they're going to kill. They're going to pass information to Sylvan Steel to kill him. Oh my God. That's what Steve Farnell might have been doing the night he was taken. So how did this speakeasy bar owner get arrested? How is he tied up in this? And more than that, Mark 87 watched as the old man stepped down off the bus. Where is Steve now? So that is 3 parts out of my 4-part day. I've done 2 truth scenes and I've done a rest scene. So here's the thing that's on my mind. There are only 3 cards left in the truth deck. The false charges, I mean, I could do my last scene of the day and then turn these 3s into the rest of the truth deck, and then I know exactly what's being hidden, and Mark 87 could wrap this case up right now. The thing is, I've still got questions. Mark 87 had been riding on the bus for most of the afternoon, and then the bus driver taps him on the shoulder. Hey buddy, time for more fare. Your ride's all done. Really? Already? And then the bus driver signals, hey, you gotta get off if you're not gonna keep on paying. I didn't even realize that I was, all right, here. And Mark 87 steps out onto the street. One of his pockets has a cred card, something that gives him station access. And it's a small thing that Nick's Crumman had fitted him with yesterday, and that memory pops into his mind at this moment. He was going to need a bus pass. Well, now he's run out. Mark 87 continues walking and finds himself about to walk up to Easy Street, except that entire bar is entirely gone. The speakeasy that he had been found in was now just a block hole in the wall. In fact, the demolition crew had already sealed up some of the concrete and installed new inserts for people to set up fresh walls, and a for lease sign was hanging and drifting in the afternoon wind. Well, you guess you just can't go home. Huh. Well, it's a good thing Easy Street isn't exactly far from Nix's apartment. Mark 87 charts a course back to the apartment that he'd woken up in this morning. Nick's Crumman is probably done with work at that point. He tries to call her using a cell phone that's embedded in his hand, and as he's making the call, he can tell that the signal is not going to connect. Either he's too, oh, of course he is, outdated. He walks over to a payphone and inserts one of the cred sticks that she'd given him earlier. Okay, this probably sounds weird, but I've got a hunch. And it's odd to have a hunch about a role-playing game mystery where you're co-creating the mystery while trying to solve the solutions. In many ways, it's like throwing confetti in the air and having a system for organizing it back into a balloon. I hope that makes sense. Point is, I could do one single truth scene to uncover the remaining clues and go straight into the solution. But if I do that, I'm going to also have a random event happen. Or, follow me on this, I could do another investigation scene to see if I can follow up on some of the truths that I've been collecting here, and In the course of that investigation scene, find more clues that can round out what I've got, and then go into a truth scene at the end. Possibly, I've got several sets that have 2 clues, so I'm probably going to have enough clues at the end of that. That means one more day, potentially more danger, and I think I'm going to go for it. Yeah. But here's one for the comment section. Would you choose to end the game here and try to just cut straight to the chase, or are you going to try and round out some more of the clues, pick up as many of the unanswered questions as possible? I'm going to have to deal with a random event either way, but at least I'll have more information on the other side. According to this thing, the rules, no matter what I do, I am going to start my next investigation scene with somebody actively looking for Mark 87. So, here we go. Yeah, Nix. No, I haven't found him yet. First things first, okay? I want you to meet me at 421 Russell. Yeah, that's 421 Russell. All right. Mark 87 sets down the phone, and after ringing up his client, makes his way steadily to 421 Russell. It's a diner that is nearly closed at the end of the day. That diner is able to sell coffee, a meal, and the occasional worker from the docks or any of the shops, late night office, and occasionally cops come over and sit in the 7 or 8, 10 table diner. It's not a big place, but it does overlook part of the town. Mark 87 steps in, and a woman with a notepad walks over. I don't know that we have anything your kind would care for. There's an outlet nearby. And Mark 87 tips his hat and says, no thanks, I've topped up this morning. Just prepare a cup of coffee for a friend of mine. Didn't know your kind had a lot of friends. She walks off. They don't. As Mark 87 looks up, across from him sits down a tall, broad woman with pulled back hair. You've been wandering around, asking a lot of questions, Mr. Robot. I'm Lieutenant Willow Thorpe, and I hate loose ends. Well, that makes 2 of us. You want the coffee when it comes over? Mark 87 opens up with a small grin. He's trying to be charming, but as he sizes up this person, he's pretty sure that this is a Sylvan Steel operative. This isn't a cop, no matter what her title sounds like. Some of the outfit doesn't match the typical uniform. There's no there's no sign of any upgrade, and especially since the cops have been handed extra upgrades all the time, you'd expect something here. And if this person does have upgrades, boy, they're well hidden. I'll cut to the chase, Mr. Robot. I know that you've been inside of our warehouse. I know you've visited the cops. And I know you're barely registered. No one's going to go and list a missing robot report. As a droid goes, you're as expendable as outdated software, and it's time to erase some of the loose ends. But I've got a problem. A large and well-upgraded individual named Farnell. He has a series of upgrades that would make my employer upset, especially if any of those were possibly connected to any unseemly accidents. So I'm effectively at the infiltration stage, and I have a level 2 threat, Willow Thorpe. And that sucks because the danger is still at a 7 because of the way that Willow was introduced. You don't have the danger when when they arrive because of a roll. You have the danger if they arrive because of an attribute test that you fail. So, all right, this does help a little bit. At the infiltration stage, I'm trying to now exfiltrate from a diner. But I've got to deal with Willow Thorpe first, or else I'm going to roll massive, massive consequences. I did not expect this to create that kind of a dilemma when I went back in. In short, if the consequences are a 9 or above, so Willow is a level 2, and then if I roll on the consequences and roll a 1d6, that's going to be, where is it? If I roll at the maximum and Willow just gets to act on their own, I'm going to take 2 fatigue at 6. That's not great. Willow is close to ending my investigation quickly. Well, my impulse is to use one of my 2 keywords. I have my signature keyword, the long coat and the hat over my android body. I also have another keyword that I collected from a different failure, Wave Band of the Cops. So I could tap into that, and using a keyword wipes out or defeats or removes threats from a scene. But could I learn something more from this person? No, I need to just straight up remove them from the scene. Or, even better, I could try to remove her from the scene the old-fashioned way, an attribute test. Now, if I do that, I have to make at least 2 successes, or 1 success if it's a plus 10, or 10 plus. So, I'm going to have Mark 87 act against the threat and try to remove her from the scene. Mark 87 leans forward with his hands steepled. So are you sure you know what you're doing here? You're trying to track down somebody. Well, you can hire me. I am a professional investigator. But then again, like you said, I'm a little out of date. Seems like you've got all the upgrades and the upper hand. Part of the problem is that you'd probably pay more attention to your surroundings. And at this point, Mark 87 stands up, happening to catch the same timing as when the server brings over that cup of coffee. Just as Willow Thorpe would try to make her move, she goes right into the cup of coffee and at the same time staggers. Mark 87 points to the 2 cops that are walking in. Hey, somebody is trying to accost me. This is Mark 87 using his insight, his environmental and situational awareness to try to trick Willow Thorpe. Now, the lieutenant is a level 2 threat, so that's great. I am rolling my best attribute, which is insight. Well, hot dog. I rolled an 11. Yeah, with an 11, that means that I have effectively removed Willow Thorpe from the scene, at least not trying to threaten me. It does also mean that I haven't tried to go against the actual investigation stage. I need to do one of those infiltration steps, or rather an exfiltration roll in this case. So when you act against threats, that doesn't necessarily count as moving you toward the rest of the investigation. Excuse me, what's the trouble here? The 2 cops approach Mark 87. I think somebody's got the information wrong on my registration. This individual is trying to purchase me, and I'm a free android. I'm a free android. Mark 87 steps out of the diner as the 2 cops start walking toward the enforcer, Willow Thorpe, who scowls at him. Mark 87 steps down the stairs and tries to call Nix Croman. Hey, that diner, that's no good, but I'll catch up to you later. He winds up leaving a message. Where is she? What you might notice is that I am setting it up so that Mark 87 can track Willow Thorpe. So I'm not necessarily infiltrating into a building, and I'm not exactly escaping a place. Instead, this is about tailing somebody that is potentially a suspect in this case. I've got my suspicions about Willow Thorpe, but let's see what happens. Technically, this might be bending the rules of Caught in the Rain, or it might be exactly as the creators intended. I'm going to try and tag them. What I'm doing here is creating a stealth operation. So by removing a threat from the scene, I'm now taking kind of narrative control of them and setting them somewhere where Mark 87 can follow them. They're not necessarily gone from the scene, they're just not watching me. So, cool. That means the infiltration roll that I have to do right now is all about whether or not um, Mark 87 can get into a position where he can track them. So this is like effectively the stealth action roll. Here we go. The android sets down the plastic receiver on the phone's hook and watches as the police and Willow Thorpe step down into the crowded sidewalk. Willow doesn't seem to notice where Mark 87 is standing now, and now it's a matter of watching how long they chat. Willow Thorpe exchanges a couple of sharp words and passes some information, shows identification, and then moves on. Where did she drive from? Or did she drive? Did she walk? Is she kind of walker? Mark 87 steps carefully out of the phone booth area and hides his body in the crowd. Time to roll dice. So it is insight time. This is Mark 87 using situational awareness, putting things together. Can he notice where they are going? You could call this resourcefulness or craftiness, but on the other hand, the way it's narratively structured, he is he's on full perception mode. So here goes the roll. Well, I rolled a 3. That's not great. That means with the insight, I rolled a 5, and I needed to roll a 7 or above. That's a failure, except I also have a pair of keywords, and now that we are like nearing the end of the line, I am going to either use the signature keyword or the waveband of cops. Now, if I strike the waveband of cops keyword, that keyword disappears forever. I don't necessarily see how I can apply that in this scenario, at least not immediately, but the long coat and hat over the robot body, that works. So maybe the fiction works something like this? Mark 87 carefully steps outside of the phone booth and is watching the conversation between the cops. Unfortunately, though, he may stand out a little bit from the crowd. As he's watching the cops interact with Willow Thorpe, Willow casts her eye left and right, looking for Mark 87. Oh, and he ducks his hat down and pulls up his coat collar, doing what he can to stay out of the eye. He knows that while he can watch from the crowd, if he gets caught right now, the game's up, and he's going to face even worse. Let's see if that fixed it. So I struck my signature keyword, the long code of my robot body. Rolling dice again. You can use keywords to reroll dice, eliminate threats like I've done before, or, and I just saw this in the rules, you can strengthen clues. Could have used that earlier. That is an 8. Plus 2 is 10. All right, we have succeeded at the infiltration stage and picked up a bonus clue. That's what I'm talking about. So here's the process of resolving an attribute test. First, you move through the infiltration stage and add 1 to the danger. Currently, my danger is at an 8. Yikes. Good thing I rolled underneath it, because if I had rolled more than the danger, I would introduce a whole new threat. Next, I gain a bonus clue. So I'm going to draw the clue card now and incorporate that into the fiction, because then the step after deciding what that bonus clue is, I get to incorporate all of it into explaining how Mark 87 fits into the crowd and is tailing Willow Thorpe. That's the infiltration that's going on. And I'm succeeding in one big move to continue to stay hidden while I'm following them. And then discovery and acquisition phase are about finding out where we wind up and what kind of information is there. I am probably going to still have to roll an escape just to make sure I don't get caught again. All right, what's the card on the clues? 9 of diamonds. Don't know that I could have used. Wait a minute. The 9 represents Sylvan Steele's contracts to off the dangerous cybernetics. Somehow, as Mark 87 begins tracking down this Sylvan Steele operative, he finds information that's related to these contracts. What info might he find? How do I refine that clue? I'm going to consult the subject oracle and see what I can find here. So the subject oracle question I'm asking is, how does Willow Thorpe's next action reveal information related to those contracts? 16, evade, empty patron. Maybe Mark 87 watches them evade an empty patron, as in watches Willow Thorpe get around somebody who actually has a contract and then maybe disable them. Yikes. Oh, and naturally, the way that I would strengthen this clue is by putting down Willow Thorpe into the clue set. So I'm going to write her name right into the mystery. From behind the bustling street and the dirty glass of the payphone, Mark 87 watches a frustrated Willow Thorpe dismiss the two cops after proving some kind of innocence, and then she heads on her way. Mark 87 has his old algorithms and programming kick into gear. It's not the first subject he's tailed before. Mark 87 watches Willow Thorpe travel down the road. Traveling on foot makes sense. As the evening crowd thickens around this part of the station, more nightlife, the glow of evening entertainment, Mark 87 has an easy time hiding with his coat and hat and watching Willow navigate the streets. And he realizes there's a pattern to their travel. Mark 87 watches as his tail is tailing someone of their own. And shortly watching Willow bend their trajectory from one city street on the K section down to the Q area, watching Willow catch up to a long-armed, too impossibly long-armed individual with extra cybernetic hands inside of a jacket. Mark 87 climbs the stairway and the fire escape to get into a view from above. And he sees Willow Thorpe advance on the individual with matted dark hair and hears them shouting for a second. Then Willow, in one quick strike, pushes the long-armed individual back. He throws off the jacket, and the long-armed individual splits his, he has two metal arms underneath, and those each subdivide into a pair of more arms underneath. So he's got like 4 arms. Unfortunately, he doesn't have any extra firepower. Willow Thorpe pulls a weapon out of her pocket, something electronic, that as soon as the individual rushes forward to make an attack against Willow, she taps the button on the weapon and the individual collapses, convulsing. There's either a taser or some kind of an electromagnetic pulse, but Mark 87 didn't register anything, so maybe it's likely that there's a short-range cybernetics disabler. I wonder if she tried to pull that off when I was sitting at the diner. Well, cool. Okay. My danger is at an 8, and it's now time for the discovery phase of the investigation scene. In the discovery phase, I am looking for where to acquire a clue. So I'm literally going to be rolling for a location along, Willow Thorpe's path. They've got this guy either arrested or stopped, so let's see where they take them. And it's fair to say that we're still using insight. Mark 87 is just walking behind them, observing. So I've got to roll above an 8. That is a 3. We've got a level 1 threat. So based on that 3, which with my insight is a 5, I get 3 things. 1, a level 1 threat, like I said. I'm also going to suffer consequences, and I gain a keyword of some kind. There are no threats in the scene that are not now activated against, so this doesn't mean that I trip up Willow Thorpe, but it means something else disrupts the investigation for the moment, blocking me from wherever they're trying to go. All right, so first off, where is Willow Thorpe going or heading to? I'm going to roll that on one of the random tables, the noir table. 63, a shopping center. Well, that fits, meaning it's busy and crowded, etc., etc. Now, what kind of keyword do I pick up? I'm going to do a science fiction-y one. No, I'm going to do another noir one. Let's see. A noir keyword 43. Grudge. Actually, so I rolled the noir for the keyword. What if I rolled a sci-fi keyword at the same time and blended the two? 34. Signal again. Grudge signal. Okay, I got an idea. The old binary codes. Yeah. All right, time to see what kind of consequences do I face. You get that by rolling a 1d6. A 4. Discard a card from the clue deck. Okay, that's not great, but a 4 of diamonds. Turns out that that's related to the clue set that the prosthetic guy was arguing with Stieg in the warehouse. Maybe that's less important than we thought. Oh well. And now I'm going to roll the sci-fi threat to see what level 1 threat gets introduced here. 14. Malfunctioning tech. The careful footfalls of Mark 87 go clack, 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 pausing only briefly to step behind a pillar or to descend the stairs as he's following Willow Thorpe. She drags the multi-armed individual through an alleyway that's just off the edge of a shopping center. And just as Mark 87 continues advancing, Willow's about to turn a corner, and at that moment, stray advertisements start hitting Mark 87's system. He's confused. His vision is blurred. Are these things holographic, or is this interrupting his own visual system? A couple of people around Mark 87 yelp as he waves away the fantastical images. It's billboards and stray writing, kanji and English letters mixing together. Is it in his face? At that moment, in that same alleyway, another old robot leans forward and taps on his shoulder. Wait, here, hold on to this. And the old robot's hard for Mark 87 to recognize at first. Is it that same guy from earlier on, just as soon as Mark 87 had woken up? No, this is someone else. He doesn't have any working legs. There's a treadmill that's underneath his torso. But Mark 87 does see in his hand an outlet. It's a binary code bypass. Hold on to this. In a couple of seconds of holding on to the stray robot's hands, a key card passes into a Mark 87 system, and the advertisements clear up. Oh, thank you. The signal is now suddenly clear. Where did Willow Thorpe go now? Can't thank you enough, man. And in response, a packet of binary code passes from the upper torso of that stray robot, and he moves on. Mark 87 rushes ahead to see where in space Willow had gone. Cool, right? Okay, so now we are running our insight again. I've got a keyword, and I managed to not lose any more fatigue, but I've also got to effectively run away from that malfunctioning tech. So I'm using my insight to negotiate the faulty advertising signals, and I probably can save that binary bypass code for something else. But let's see. Rolling insight, which is a 2, and I need to roll above an 8 to avoid getting another threat. Wait, hang on a second. The danger has to be put in half because I had just created that other threat. Well, now that's much easier to roll above a 4, I think. It is all still probability. All right, rolling insight. That is a 7, 8, 9. So success with consequences. Rolling on the consequences table. 3 plus the danger. So that's a little weird. Um, in this role, I was running away from the malfunctioning advertisements. And the consequence, I succeeded in evading that thing. I'm like effectively now in the discovery phase in a second. But the consequence I got was that the advertisements are actually going against me. So, um, weird, right? Mark 87 runs, and his system remembers what it's like to be in hot pursuit. Except this time he is escaping from advertisements that are now affecting his system. The blare and noise of money and coins and all the false sounds of a marketplace that he doesn't participate in anymore. All of that scrambling signal fades as he rushes away. And then some of it sticks in his own system, so he shakes it off. Luckily, it doesn't take too much. And in that moment that he stands collecting himself, he catches sight of the broad-shouldered Willow Thorpe, still pulling their quarry, and out of the way of the shopping center. There's now a set of industrial buildings. We're in one of the side streets now of the station, and Mark 87 carefully pulls his coat in and moves closer and closer, not wanting to lose track of where Willow Thorpe might lead. It looks like the doors of a laboratory and maybe an office for a doctor. And as Mark 87 approaches, he recognizes the Sylvan steel signal, the icon for Sylvan steel emblazoned across one of the doors. And that's not necessarily the door that Willow Thorpe goes into. Willow moves around that shopping center to a building just outside of it. Mark 87 recognizes this. This is one of the outer pier points, the docking ports for the station. Where is she taking this guy? All right, so I've gone from infiltration, which is getting behind Willow Thorpe and sneaking behind, following her, to discovery, finding this outpost of Sylvan Steel. Now it's the acquisition stage. I roll another attribute test, and at the end of this attribute test, I get a clue. Yeah, and then after that, I escape. Thing is, though, as you move through each of those steps, you gain more danger. So last time I had to roll above a 4. This time I have to roll above a 5. Rolling my insight because we are watching, and it is a stakeout. And I got a hunch about where they are keeping these people. 5, 3. All right, very cool. That is a 10 with my insight, so I get a bonus clue, but no doubles, no random stuff, just good facts. I'm nervous about re-entering the mystery when I've got so much danger and so much extra stuff on the line, and I could have resolved it in a couple of scenes before. So the last couple of dangers have been a problem. Okay. So succeeding at the acquisition stage, danger increases by 1. Okay, now it is a 6. That's great again. And I draw a clue card. A 7 of diamonds. Okay. Oh, and I draw another one because of the bonus clue. It's a 10. All right. And it's an 8. Reframing. Okay, so we are tracking down a Sylvan Steel operative. Sylvan Steel operatives are there to eliminate, get rid of these overpowered, upgraded individuals. So an 8 represents Stieg looking for his lost brother, and it's the Starship logs that apparently was related to Leaf Barnell, and Leaf being listed as dangerous but not eliminated, so that it isn't as if he evaded capture before. We didn't get that much of a conversation with him. Instead, it's more like Leaf had been captured and Stieg found him, and these Starship logs are the hint about where these people are going. Sylvan Steel is keeping people off of the station, literally, by posting them on starships. All right. Number 7 is the clue that's tied to Lorenzo Iverson and all the charges related to the kidnapping. Why is Lorenzo Iverson tied to the kidnapping for Stieg Cornell? Wait a minute. So Lorenzo Iverson was on a transport ship instead of being um, at the Easy Street. And Lee was on another transport ship, those shipping logs. And we're making a jump here, but it seems like Sylvan Steel is keeping some of these dangerous guys off of the station in a starship, some kind of prison ship. But how does that tie to Lorenzo Iverson himself? He's the bar owner. Now the clues like start coming together. Mark 87 crouches beside a crate and listens carefully as Willow begins tapping an unlock button on a docked ship that's accessed inside of that building. Mark 87 hears Willow pull the body inside and quickly runs right up and comes around behind them, listening on the edge of the lab that now accesses a docking port. And he hears the tapping on buttons, and as he's listening to Willow Thorpe access the connection to the ship logs, Mark 87 watches the data coming in. This ship used to house Lee Farnell, and somehow Mark 87 recognizes that Steve must have gotten Lee off of that ship. As Mark 87 carefully peers around the corner, watching Willow Thorpe re-incarcerate the four-armed individual, he also recognizes some of the faces that are stored inside of the ship. As he's running through the manifest and ship logs, one of the names listed is the police chief. What is he doing stored with out-of-control, upgraded prosthetic addicts? Oh. Mark 87 watches carefully and pieces things together. The police chief and any number of out-of-control prosthetic upgrade addicts are now stored, housed, jailed here. There's no way the police chief would have gotten his own contract. Sylvan Steel is doing something altogether dirtier. And Lorenzo Iverson can prove that he wasn't on the station, but I'm willing to bet Mark 87 registers the fresh supposition. Is there a chance that Lorenzo Iverson is being held by the cops instead of being turned over to Sylvan Steel because they are trying to find their missing police chief? Now this suggests where Steve might be. Within moments, Mark 87 realizes he's got to get out of here. Willow Thorpe looks preoccupied now, and Mark 87's eyes scan for any kind of cameras or security, as this part of the building, the lab, is attached to some kind of starship. And as he carefully backs out of the laboratory into the front offices and then tries to escape back to the main area the main street of the space station Whitehome. His eyes are staying sharp and his ears are carefully tuned to any sound that is not his own careful footsteps and the rustle of his coat. I hope that counts as insight, because that's what I'm rolling. Because if Mark 87 gets captured here, I think narratively we know what's going to happen, whether or not the dice operates that way. Although I can pull a trick out of my hat with any of the keywords, but oh my gosh. All right, trying to escape. And I have to roll above, well, I have to roll above a 6 in any case. Because 1, that's the barrier for success. 2, the danger level is currently at a 6. So if I fail, a new threat appears. That's not great. That is a 5 and a 6. Escape And 5 and 6 plus 2, we're good. And I get a bonus clue out of that. So he notices something on the way out. Let's see what it is. A 10. 10 is related to the bug out bag from Steeg's locker. Oh, maybe it's standard issue, and those are common on the starship. So that means it's more like crew equipment. Cool. Wait, that suggests that the bag at Sylvan Steel wasn't Steeg's at all. It had some cash, had some creds. It might have been Leaf's. Moments later, Mark 87 runs out onto the street and hustles quickly, holding onto his hat and reaching out an arm and taking a quick leap, jumping onto the edge of one of the traveling buses. And he rides it out of that sector of the station, far from Willow, Thorpe, and Sylvan Steel, and he hopes far from anybody who might be checking his bus fare. It occurs to Mark 87, he's gone pretty far without ever checking for his old belongings. Where is his car? He has ridden the transit more in the last 3 or 4 days than he has, well, in more than 50 years. Then again, for most of those 50 years, he wasn't going anywhere. We are so close to ending this. I've got to do one more truth scene in order to pull the last 3 cards. But the day has ended. Here's my last clock. So, gotta mark that. And when that happens, a random event occurs that I also have to do another attribute test on. What kind of random event are we going to get here? 1, 4, guard. 2, 3, empty. 3, 2. Guard, empty, wealth. As soon as Mark 87 got back to the apartment where Nix Croman was going to meet him, he knew something was wrong. The apartment door had been jammed open, instead of the typical sliding hatch that it usually was. That jammed open door led to an empty, dark apartment. As he stepped inside, though, he realized it wasn't empty. I can't believe it. There's nothing here. She carries home all this equipment every night. There's nothing? And 2 large men kick around the equipment that Nix Croman had been squirreling away that was hidden behind one of the curtains. The ones that Nix said not to tell anybody about. What is this? This is a bunch of junk. Mark 87's regular signaling system tries to fire off one of the automatic reports. Help. Burglary in progress. Armed assailant. And he's not even sure that it actually reaches anybody. And at this time of night, maybe out to this area of the station there might be a quick response, but how much longer will they be here? How long have they been here already? Mark 87 rolls his fist, and the joints, as outdated as they have been, still seem trustworthy enough. Oh man, I've been trying to avoid having Mark 87 roll his power, and I think we're about to do that because it's a fight scene, apparently. I promise, I'm just improvising my way through this, everybody. Let's see how the android does. Rolling my power, which is +0. Double 6s. Okay. Well, he succeeds, but now another random event occurs again on top of that. A random on top of a random. Okay, that's 6, 4. Focus. Slow. Focus. Slow. Root. Well, that explains that. And on top of that, I get a clue. A 2. The 2 is related to the dusk flower seeds and cybernetic implant suppression. Mark 87 throws a rock to the other side of the apartment. What was that? And then in moments, he becomes a whirling dervish of fists, feet, and knees that hit each of the assailants across the jaw, in the gut. The 2 men go down quickly, and As for any kind of upgrades that they might have, Mark 87 didn't give them a chance. One of their heads breaks open a cabinet full of dusk flower medication, and Mark 87 recognizes the sign. Oh, yeah. Okay, so he did have a lot of this material. No wonder he himself didn't show up on any of the lists of dangerous cybernetic upgraded individuals. What on earth? And Mark 87 kneels down and sees Nyx Croman bound and gagged. Okay, well, that explains why you weren't answering your phone. How long have these guys been here? And she shakes the muzzle off of her face. Long enough. They just ruined half of my engine components. These projects have taken forever, but they didn't recognize what they were worth. A good riddance. Moments later, the red and blue lights of police cars descend around the apartment. The flying cars push fog and steam away as they descend toward the apartment. It's a much stronger response than Mark 87 thought they would give, but apparently they've been upgraded pretty well. As one of the patrol cars descends, Mark 87 and Nyx Croman wave down and signal that the danger is gone. That said, the cops still arrive and arrest. A sergeant from the police steps forward, and as they're comparing notes, Mark 87 leans in and goes, "Where is your police chief?" The sergeant squints at him. "What business is that of yours?" And he continues questioning Nyx. "So they didn't take anything else of value?" "Well, they damaged a lot of material. Look at this place." "And it's a good thing your android was there to provide some extra security. That's great." And speaking of security, Mark 87 leans forward. "What about the missing persons case that you're working on?" "Excuse me?" The sergeant stares flatly at the android detective. "The missing persons case. Steve Barnell. You're talking to his partner now. Nyx Croman has been waiting 3 days for any kind of movement on that case. And it looks like you guys are taking the slow route. My android robot has been actually working the case too, and I believe he's made some findings." And Mark 87 steeples his fingers and says to the sergeant, "We've got so much to discuss." "Oh, really? Like what?" "Like the fact that Sylvan Steel is playing your entire police force. But let's talk about it tomorrow. I don't think any of your crew here really needs to hear the details. Not just yet." "Can I call on you sometime tomorrow, Sergeant Haywood? Montgomery Haywood. Sergeant Montgomery Haywood." And he pulls a card out of his pocket and hands it to the android. "Just make sure your registration's all up to date." Mark 87 thanks him for the card and watches the three patrol cars ascend back into the sky. Flying cars inside of a station. How does that work? Wonder if the trajectory is weird. Anyway, Mark 87 pays very careful attention to Nyx and any kind of injuries that they have. And together they close out the night. Have I got news for you? Whoa. Well, that was a heavy day in Caught in the Rain. This is Youssef Sleiman. Thank you all so much for watching or following along with the investigation with Mark 87. By all rights, I think I've figured out that there are only a handful of turns left in this game. So I've got one more truth scene to knock out, and then with these existing truth cards, I'll be able to guess. Based on this, you can tell that there's at least 4 green cards and 2 blue cards sitting in the either the mystery or the truth deck. So things are going to get wrapped up. We're going to find out where Stieg went and exactly what happened on that fateful night. I've got to say that the last couple of days have been a lot harder to wrap around the game's structure. At the beginning, the game hands you a whole lot of data to start pulling together clues. But what happens here when your mystery has so much clue content that it could just continue to spray everywhere. You kind of need to create the connections between the clues. So think about divergent forms of thinking and then convergent forms of thinking. So the last couple of clues I've been trying to find, okay, how does this connect to that? So you can see he's getting close to wrapping things up, and the investigation is starting to come together. I've got a lot of guesses about where the missing man is now, as well as how Mark 87 is going to try and pull things together. If you've got a couple of guesses, feel free to share them in the comments. Like and share and subscribe to the podcast. I'm planning to do another game of Caught in the Rain to explore Mark 87's own personal mystery, as in, how did he get frozen for 50 years? So the conversation continues. See you in the next episode, everybody.